What's up, Internet? It's me, Jake Cobran, and you are listening to another episode of the Quarantine Sessions podcast. I began to record episodes for this podcast at the beginning of the year 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the inspiration behind these podcasts was to provide a platform for the pillars and leaders of my community to share their voice and to help construct an inspiring narrative for people in this time of crisis, when a need for the upliftment of the spirit has been at its most urgent. This podcast centers around themes of art, creativity, spirituality, and psychedelics. And the incredible people I've had conversations with are all people who have bravely stepped outside of the conventional way of thinking and the conventional way of being and have transcended the matrix of the default reality, living life on their own terms. They are all people I respect deeply, and it has been an amazing opportunity and a privilege to speak to and learn from them. Most of these podcasts have been recorded live through Instagram, which is a new and somewhat experimental medium to conduct podcasts. I truly hope you enjoy this podcast and continue to tune in for future episodes. It's really a labor of love on my part, and thank you so much again for listening. Without further ado, here's the show. This episode today is with Fida Fadel, who is my friend who also lives in Ubud, Bali. Fida is a brilliant scholar on astrology and on gene keys, and she is originally from Lebanon, and I loved hearing the sound of her voice in this podcast. So this podcast is worth listening to, even if you don't have any interest in astrology, just for the sound of her beautiful voice. But we dove deep into the astrological underpinnings of some of the current events, which this year have been really intense. And we also talked about how astrology is misperceived and what it means from a more symbolic perspective. It was a really inspiring talk. We also dove into Fida's ideas on non-duality, which she was able to articulate very beautifully. And overall, great podcast. I hope you like it. I like it. So I hope you like it. And here it goes. Woo!
Great. How are you?
Good. Yeah, thanks for joining us here.
Sure.
Do you, we can wait for a second for people to kind of join on a bit more.
And I can fix my phone.
Yeah. Is this your first time going live on Instagram?
Actually, yeah, I'm a virgin.
Wow. Yeah, I've been provoking a lot of people to take their Instagram live virginities recently. Definitely, definitely these double lives. That's for sure. But it's
I'm more used to Facebook and Zoom, and but I love Instagram as well. Yeah, I've been watching your podcasts.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, a lot.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it's an honor to have you as one of the guests. Do you want to introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. My name is Fida. My name is Fida. I am a non-dual teacher, an astrologer, and a gene keys ambassador. I live in Bali currently. I am from Lebanon originally. That's all.
Cool. I think your story goes a lot deeper than that, but yeah, that's a great introduction for now.
Yeah.
Mostly, I think that I wanted to talk to you about current events and how this relates to what is going on astrologically. But I thought that before we dive into that, we can pull back a bit. I want this conversation to be really accessible for a lot of people, and there's a lot of people who might be tuning in that aren't really that familiar with astrology. So I was wondering if you could just give us a kind of primer and tell us a bit about what astrology is to you, how it's influenced your life, and how it can be used, and how to understand it. Because I think that a lot of people have a lot of misunderstandings about what it even is, or what it means. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like the most misunderstood thing about astrology is that people think that astrology somehow is the causation of the events that we perceive. Of course, they are not. The planets' placement and transits are let's say, the blueprint. You know, it is the underlying like code, so to speak, you know, the coding of the event. It's the explanation rather than the causation. So we explain a certain event by those archetypes playing or influencing our reality in such way. And astrology is very, very complex and intricate as well. Some people think it's just like your horoscope, your sun sign. It is not. There are more than 1,700 influences in your natal chart. This is only at the time of the birth. 1,700 placement and aspect that influence your life and yourself and your design. So it is as complex as a human being. You know, because it set the foundation of that blueprint of our designs. And also like the projection into the future, which is the transit, are not like solid prediction. They are merely trends, you know, and some kind of patterns that also set a certain template for what's happening. And it's up to each one of us how we perceive what's happening according to our preset design and conditioning, and freeing ourselves from conditioning as well. So that also play a big role.
Would you say that the alignment of the planets and their correlation with events, either personally or collectively, is a kind of synchronicity of sorts, where there is like this kind of there's a cohesion there, but yet they're not necessarily causing each other to happen also?
It is one whole intricate design. You know, when we zoom in, we see the parts, we see this aspect, this placement, but it is one design, one mandala, one perfect design, you know, setting the template of the universe, or at least the solar system.
So studying astrology can kind of help you to zoom out and start to see life in its many different facets as a whole, more so as separate individual isolated things, but shows you the interconnectedness between the many different facets that make up our lives, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you will have a more understanding about what's happening, how it's happening, why it's happening, and what you can do with it. In relation to other, you understand people on a deeper level. So you excuse them instead of judging them when they are acting in a certain way, you know, because this is their design and they're working through their design. So there is so much acceptance and forgiveness and allowing when one truly dive and understand astrology in very holistic way.
Is there astrology something that we can transcend? Like if we have certain influences that we're born into planetarily that might be not so much in our favor, is that something that we can work through, kind of like working through
And
karma to transcend?
yeah, any placement, any transit, any aspect, anything in astrology doesn't have one aspect. It's like in the gene keys, you know, we have this shadow aspect of this influence, this pattern, and we have within the shadow the opportunity to grow and to transcend and to go to the gift, and then the siddhi, which is the divine essence or our highest expression. So it's not about like transcending something, because it's transcending astrology, because astrology is not limiting us. It's setting the template of our awakening, of our transcendence, of our expansion. But it's how we use it.
So there's nothing really bad or good in a chart. It's more about
No,
how you work with what you're.
absolutely. I mean, there are difficult things and they are more like benefic stuff in that chart, but the challenges are the most benefic eventually, you know, when we face that challenge, when we grow through it.
How would a normal person go about using astrology in a way that's constructive to their daily lives? And how do you use it?
I mean, to seek professional guidance is one of the best step one can do. This is what I did. It doesn't have like to book a session. It can be like you read a book, you watch a YouTube, you book a session, you know, just like you need mentoring into such thing, whether like self-study or with someone who will help you do that. The best thing is not to obsess about astrology.
Yeah.
You know, because one can really go really deep and get stuck. We don't know everything. Everything is there, but we don't know. We don't see everything. It takes ages of study and deep exploration and applying and observing how this is playing in your life and others' life to understand just little tiny bit of this. You know, we're talking about the template of creation. So it's about like to keep an open curiosity around astrology instead of limiting ourselves and panicking when we have something difficult coming, you know, or you know. So it's more like about being curious and open and fascinated, you know, fascinated. Like even now during this current pandemic, for me as an astrologer, it gave me more about like more observation of what's going on with curiosity and fascination instead of being subjected to what's happening and falling into reaction and drama and fear. So this is an attitude that is really beautiful for an astrologer or anyone who's interested in such thing to develop this witness.
Yeah, that's been a recurring theme in these conversations in general, is the importance of curiosity and how that is an antidote to fear. That when you can just be curious about things and kind of look at them from a place of interest rather than to make assumptions about what things mean and to close down and to succumb to density, then
Absolutely.
that frees life up in a much greater way. And definitely astrology is an interesting lens to be able to look at things through. I think when things occur in your personal life, say like the end of a relationship or something like that, rather than going into a story and succumbing to a victim's mentality, you can look at it through the lens of astrology and just find fascination in the correlation of events and the movement of the planets.
It does help a lot. Yeah, definitely.
So I've studied astrology a bit, not nearly as much as you have, but I know a bit about the archetypes of the different planets as well as the different signs. But would you mind briefly giving an overview of what some of the main planetary influences are, as well as their placement in a chart and what that means, as if somebody watching this has no prior education on astrology?
Yeah, you mean what's going on right now? Because we can use what's going on right now to give
more basic than that, so that someone could even understand what you're talking about, to talk about what's going on right now, but just more about what is the sun, what is Mars, things like that. Would you mind just a little bit talking about it? You don't have to
that's a lot, but okay.
I know it's a lot, but we don't have to go into all of it, but just like a very brief overview about what some of the planetary influences are and how they navigate through the different signs and what that means.
Okay. So when we say that I am Aries, let's say, it means what we really mean, that the sun at the moment of our birth was in Aries, and the sun of Aries. And that represents the self, you know, the inner self. When we say my Mars in, let's say, Gemini, it means that Mars at the moment of birth was in a Gemini. And Mars represents our passion, our action, our aggression, the conflict, the emotional conflict. It is the Lord of War. It is the fiery and the sexual planet. Venus is how we love. This is the love planet, but also it can govern our finances because it is what we value. You know, Venus is possessive about what she values in life, and what we most value actually is money and love. On that level, because Venus is an internal planet. So when we're talking about Sun, and there is Mars and Venus and Mercury, those are internal planets. This is our internal reality. So Mercury is our mental reality, how we communicate, how we broadcast ourselves, how we market ourselves, and it is our mental faculty. So those are the internal planets that governs our personal reality. So whenever we have a transit of those planets, we feel them more personal. So now we're coming into Venus retrograde. We will be feeling the effect of the pandemic, whatever happened in the last few months, on more deeper level, whether in our relationships or our finances, because of the Venus retrograde. While so far, all what happened so far has been collective. Of course, we feel it, but it is a collective experience. And the collective experience, the impersonal experience, is governed by Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion, of wisdom, and Jupiter is the law. Saturn is the punisher when we don't follow the law. Pluto is our deepest fear when we don't follow the law. But which law? We're not talking about the man-made law. You know, we're talking about the law of one, the one law, the law that we are one being, one infinite being. And we have mistaken ourselves to be the finite mortal self. And this is why Saturn for us is karmic, is the teacher, is the punisher, but also is our structure, the foundation. It is the foundation of the assumption the world is based on. It is the foundation of the understanding of the self. And when this is a misunderstanding, not understanding, when this is a misunderstanding, then the world will keep on shaking. You know, the foundation is wrong. If there is an error in thinking in our foundation and how we see reality and how we understand ourselves. And this is why Saturn, we don't like it. But it's not Saturn, it's us. It is our error in thinking to think that we are something that we are not, which is a mortal, separate self living in an external world, floating in time and space, made of inert stuff called matter. But this is a model that is not based on ultimate truth, on the law of one. Then we have Pluto, that also one of the most malefic planets, and it is death, it is deep transformation, it is our deepest fear, it is the revealer of our deepest truth. But we fear our deepest truth because we think we are the person, but we are not. So there is a sense of death of the person when we expand beyond the person. So Pluto, when the foundation again is built on false assumption, then Pluto will reveal our deepest fear that is the outcome of such false assumption of ourselves. When we feel we are mortal and separate, we live in fear, we live in lack, we fear death, and there is a deep sense of unworthiness. And this is what Pluto reveals, the inner truth rather than an outer truth. So when people are investigating an outer truth, they are missing the point of Pluto. You know, Pluto is all about the deepest truth that is revealed by this process of death and rebirth, deconstruction and construction and reconstruction, rebuilding the foundation on a solid, real, and absolute ultimate truth about who we are. So those
Pluto
are
is
Saturn.
I feel like Pluto is like the farthest back perspective that you can take. It's the most far out planet. And it's kind of like, I guess, what the Buddha talks about when he was sitting under the bo tree and saw himself incarnate through lifetime after lifetime and was, you know, this person, this animal, and then died and was reborn. And it's kind of like seeing from that perspective and seeing through a really impersonal lens to how we are this interconnected web infinitely of life and life energy, and not these separate individual selves that have lives that eventually and are mortal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's interesting that Pluto is invisible to the eye in the sky. You know, it is what we'd rather not see. Like we shun it. We want to make it really, really far, you know. But it is this also, it is our deepest truth. We still have Neptune as well. Neptune is one of those planets that we cannot see as well, you know, and it represents the veil of separation. So when we have Neptune, there's confusion. When we have Neptune placement or transit or aspect, there is confusion. There is idealism that is not grounded, because also it is a very far planet, and it represents enlightenment. It represents the knowing of the self. So this is also obscure to us, the knowing of the self and the universal love that comes with it, the experience of being one, intimate with all that is, that bring this experience of love, of ecstasy, of bliss. So we see each planet, in fact, they are not malefic or benefic. They are merely the thing that we need to integrate, the thing that we need to understand deeper about ourselves through our life experiences. It's not read in a book, you know. It's not heard in a lecture. Only it is integrated in our experience as we go through our heartbreak, our failure, our traumas, all of it.
So it's kind of like our birth chart is our curriculum that we're assigned to in this lifetime.
Basically, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, the planet's placement within the sign is literally the perspective from where we are in the Earth, where the planet appears to be, what constellation it's passing through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything that we talk about astrology, it's from this point of view. So what we see in the sky. So even when we say retrograde, it doesn't mean that the planet is going backward. No planets go backward. It means that what we see it going backward because of this movement, intricate movement of the planet.
Cool. Yeah. So what has been going on for us currently? There's been a lot of crazy stuff happening on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, we started 2020 with one of the most intense conjunctions. And that is in January 12, we had Pluto and Saturn conjuncting. And then in April 5, we had Jupiter and Pluto conjuncting. And then we will have the same Jupiter-Pluto conjunction twice. This whole year is colored by this. And as we see, this is not a normal year. But if we look at history, at our recent history, the last few times this kind of conjunctions happened, especially with Saturn and Pluto. Saturn and Pluto conjuncted in 1914, and that was the World War I. And then it conjuncted in 1947, and that was World War II and the atomic bomb on Japan. And then in 1982, the last conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. And that was during the American recessions and many very dramatic, and the Cold War, and many very, very dramatic events in our lives. So meaning that every time these two planets meet, there is something dramatic and drastic happening, changing the face of humanity, so to speak, and shaking the foundation of our lives. And Jupiter now entered that dance, you know, during this year. And also, I don't remember exactly the year, but the year of the flu pandemic was also during the conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto. Jupiter expands what it touches, and it's touching now Pluto. And Pluto is the Lord of death and transformation and our deepest fear. So the global image that we see today is this purge of our existential crisis, our existential panic, you know. And if we look really deeply, the global event is not the virus or the pandemic or the lockdown. The real event is this purge of our existential crisis and confusion. And this is why we see the many opinions and the many debates, because everything now is coming to the surface in form of virus, pandemic, lockdown, debates, and all of it. Eventually, should get us to a better place, especially that we have Uranus and Saturn squaring weekly this year, but very strongly next year. So this is a revolution happening. This is a big change happening to humanity, a radical revolutionary change, because Uranus is the planet of revolution that shake everything. It is the unexpected, shocking enlightenment and awakening. And Saturn, as we know, the limitation, the restriction, the old ways. So next year, we will see this play, this play between the old ways and the new ways, the revolution that is coming, but not without a crisis. Because of the square. The square is a very difficult angle between those two planets. So there is very intense energy here happening that will reshape humanity, meaning that it will reshape how we understand our society, our finances, our economy, how we rebuild those things. Now Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is an earthly sign. So also part of it can be manifested as like going back to earth, like re-evaluating our choices when it comes to environment and the earth and the animals.
And also economic factors, probably.
Absolutely, the finances as well, because Taurus is about finances. So everything is changing, and it's changing rapidly, but having said that, Uranus always brings the unexpected. So we can sit here and do like endless interpretation about Uranus agenda, and we will not know because he always have an unexpected, shocking agenda. So what we know is that there is a revolutionary change that is coming and happening to humanity in the next 7 years, and we will become a new human, a new society for sure.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I think that crisis usually precedes great transformation. And sometimes these traumatic events can actually be quite positive in an interesting way. It's like the pendulum swing from restriction to liberation. And I thought about that this summer when I was spending time in Berlin, because Berlin is a place that has undergone a lot of trauma. You had like the Nazi regime, and then you had the Berlin Wall and everything, and there's a lot of restriction. It was a very strict place for a long time, and now Berlin is like maybe the freest city in the whole world, or one of them. And it's just so much liberation there, where you can be anyone you want. You can be interested in anything you want. There's total freedom around that. There's no shame or judgment to be any kind of way there. And I think that Berlin wouldn't be this kind of haven of freedom without having initially gone through that intense struggle. And A Course in Miracles much better than me, but I remember there being some line there that was talking about, in order to know our true selves, we have to experience that which we're not.
Yeah.
Right? There's something like that in A Course in Miracles. And I think that is perhaps what we're going through collectively, is or have been going through for a long time, is we've been living unnaturally. We've been living out of alignment with our truth, and that's created a lot of pain in the world, and we're addicted to that. And this is an intervention to help break those addictions and those ways that we're living out of alignment, so that we can move forward in greater alignment and harmony with ourselves and the planet and our communities, etc.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I mean, from what I understand it, it's like there is a price to pay when you come into manifestation, so to speak. It's like when we dream a dream, you know, and it's all happening in this one mind, one genius mind. The dream happens, and to experience a dreamed upward, you will have to contract into a dream character. So this contraction has caused us the forgetting and what we know as separation. And every event, whether happy event or dramatic event, is a call for the self to remember itself, whatever that is. So everything we see is just an act of love and an expression of this universal love of the one self, or a call for love. So whatever happening now is also an invitation to turn toward the self and to hear this echo of the true self within us, instead of projecting again and again this conflict, this existential conflict and fear and panic into an outer reality, and we dream another chaotic happening and more suffering. So the invitation is to go back and to investigate in the self, like who is suffering, who is the sufferer, you know, who is the self, and to hear this call again. And once you do, it will take you, because this is what it does. Out of love, it will bring you back to yourself.
Yeah, over the last few days, I was listening to this audiobook by Pema Chodron called When Things Fall Apart, which is a great book about Buddhist meditation. It's really pertinent for these times in particular, I think. And I've read many Buddhist books, but this one was really phenomenal. And something that she was talking about that really struck me is how basically our whole society is built around escaping from the discomfort of being with ourselves. And it's such a radical act to just sit and be in the existential void that we exist in, and that fundamental anxiety and disquiet of not knowing what's going on, of being out of control, of feeling our pain, our all of our actions are basically geared towards escaping discomfort and acquiring some illusion of security to bring us comfort. And this just creates immense suffering. You know, it's seeking happiness in really the wrong ways. And I think that is coming to a crescendo. We've reached a crisis point in that direction of action. And hopefully now people can begin to become more finely attuned to what genuinely brings us happiness and what genuinely brings us suffering. And what we think brings us happiness usually actually just brings us more suffering. And we see that on a collective level very greatly, with all of the resources on our planet being drained for people's very short-term personal satisfaction, and even the great acquisition of material objects and worldly pleasures doesn't bring any lasting happiness or satisfaction at all. And I think that in a way, the crisis or this ordeal has arisen out of that as an intervention to try to just get people to stop. Stop. Like you're hurting yourself. Stop. You know, it's like for your own. It's for your own safety, actually.
Yeah. I mean, there is a point in one's life when we come into this radical self-honesty that all I truly want is to be happy. You know, all I truly want is to be free, to have love, to have compassion. And we are continuously looking for that. And we have projected our search outwardly, as you said, in the acquisition of things, in relationships, and so on. And there is a moment of maturity when one has to admit that my search has failed. You know, it's not there. It's not in a person. He will not, she will not give me this happiness. This money, this career, this success, this reputation, this fame is not the source of my happiness. And we will have to redirect our search toward the self. And we know that we are looking for what's looking. We are longing for what's longing. So we turn to the source of the longing, to the self, and we know ourself. And when I say to know the self, I'm not talking, of course, about the person and the skills and the gifts, and this is not the self I'm talking about. I'm talking about the essential self, who we truly are, beyond the person, beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the story and the thoughts and the feeling and the memories, who we are truly beyond that. So at certain point, personally and collectively, we will have to stop, as you said, and we will have to say, this hasn't been working, and I need to investigate. And the only thing I'm certain about, what are we certain about? What is truth? There are many and endless relative truths, but they remain perspectives and opinions. And we think we know, but what do we truly know? We only know that I am. I might not know what I am, but I know that I am. So this is the only access of truth that is within me, that I am. Then I have to investigate in this. This is the foundation. We said now the structure of the world is shaking because the foundation is based on an error of thinking. The most common model of the universe, of course, is the materialistic universe, that we are mortal little selves living in a world made of matter, floating in space and time. And even the spiritual perspective or understanding also has got it wrong to a certain degree. Because what we did is that we tried to reconcile the old model, materialistic model, with our new understanding that there is one consciousness or universal consciousness. So we started saying, like, the universe is aware, the universe is conscious, the tree is conscious, my body is conscious. This is very confusing. And we say, I am one with the tree. No one ever really felt one with the tree because we started wrong again. We are reconciling the false model with a new understanding. What we should do, and we should have done, and we can do, is that cancel the first model altogether and start over. Start with awareness. There is one awareness that takes the form of thinking, feeling, perceiving. Then a word appears. And meaning that we cannot say anymore that a tree is aware, that gives an independent entity, living being to a tree. The tree is an expression of, or a presentation of awareness. Only awareness is aware, meaning that the person as well is not aware. Awareness is aware. But this expression, I call myself, I call by my name, and your expression are known and presented by the same awareness. And when we start here, then it's easier to start to feel this intimacy, that there is one knowing, one awareness that is modulated into the many things, the many people. So there are no 7 billion people aware. There is one awareness that has 7 billion people, known by the same awareness, the same self. So here we reunite ourselves with that thing that is the only thing that is true within me. So I'm not talking about universal awareness. I'm not talking spiritual cliche. I'm talking reality. I'm talking truth. I'm talking about that which is aware in you, that which is looking through your eyes right now, hearing my voice right now, aware of your experience right now, aware of your internal experience as well right now, which is the thought, the feeling, the memories that I call a person, that I call Fida. I am the one that is aware of that. Same awareness, aware of the one, aware of your person you call by your name. So we need to start with a healthy and a true foundation, and then build a reality based on that, and then understand ourselves based on that. And then here, Pluto will not destroy this foundation because it is solid, it is based on truth. And Saturn will be the planet of the structure of love and oneness. And Jupiter, the law of one, is setting this blueprint for our life, the template of one, for our reality, for our life.
Thank you. Yeah, that's something that Pema Chodron speaks about in this book as well, which is a fundamental Tibetan Buddhist concept. And I think Buddhism actually, at least the true teachings of the Buddha, really does. It's really accurate to reality, and it really explains the non-dual reality in a very digestible manner. But she was talking about hopelessness, and hopelessness being this not only empowering but fundamental to being able to walk on the path of to be able to walk on real ground, because most people are operating on all of these false beliefs and assumptions. For example, that you can do something or you can attain a state in which you are exempt from suffering, and that's how most people are running about their lives. Like, if I get all the things, if I have $1 million in the bank, if I have a certain level of status or fame, if I have a certain kind of relationship, if I live in a certain kind of place, and I can retire and just like hang out on the beach, then I'm exempt from suffering. But there just is no place in this reality that is exempt from suffering, because we are fundamentally interconnected. And even if you can get to a place where you exist in an island of bliss, you're still going to be subject to the empathetic influences of all the other suffering that's around you. So there just is no place exempt from suffering, and that is a realization that needs to occur. And then you can see all of your pursuits basically as hopeless. You know, you're not going to be able to manipulate the material world into giving you that state of nirvana or whatever it is. It just doesn't work. People have tried.
Yeah.
Tons of people have tried. Most people
Absolutely.
have. And it's just hopeless. So I really resonated with that. And I think it's relative to what you were talking about. And also, like, I listened to an interview with Ricky Gervais. And Ricky Gervais is an astute atheist, and he's very bright, but he looks at things so rigidly through this kind of materialistic scientific model. And I would really think it's better to do away completely with any sort of assumption that we understand or know what's going on. Because to participate in a theistic model, like as a Christian or something, or to participate in life as an atheist, both is founded on perhaps the false presumption that we know anything, or that we understand anything. And what you're talking about is embracing a perspective that is outside of conceptual models. So to just be in awareness, which is what the practices of Buddhism actually try to get you to, where you're not always creating a narrative in your mind, or categorizing things, or labeling things, or trying to make sense of things, because the logical mind cannot comprehend truth. It's only outside of the logical mind, in that 0 point of pure awareness, which is what we are, and we've all had the experience of that, because it's who we were for the majority of the beginning of our lives, and it is what we will return to. And you can glimpse that through meditation practices, or sometimes in psychedelic experiences, and other things, sometimes spontaneously. But that is the only place, and through that lens is the only lens where truth can be apprehended or perceived.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I found like there is in my experience, there is this direct path to the self. When we understand that it is the self that knows itself. You know, we don't know ourselves through the object, whether a thought, a mantra, anything. It can, those things, like such as mantra can calm the mind and open you up to knowing yourself. But eventually, it's not the tool, it's not the mantra or the yoga or any tool that gets you to the knowing of the self. It is only the self that knows itself. And we can experiment with this when we just ask ourselves this simple question: am I aware? Am I aware? And in this half a second, we sink into awareness. I know I am aware. There is this split of second when there is no thought anymore. It's not a thought that took me to that place of awareness. It is awareness recognizing itself to be aware. So this is the first step. This is the foundation. When you tap into, I am aware. Am I aware? I am aware. Being aware that I am aware. Then we investigate in this awareness. We try to understand its quality, so to speak, meaning that, do I find limitation to that awareness? Is there a border to it? If I say skin is inside awareness. Awareness is not inside of a skin, so it's not really the border of awareness. Is it the mind? The mind is thinking, and thoughts are inside of awareness. Awareness is not inside of thoughts. So with deeper investigation, we see that my awareness, the thing that which knows, that which is aware, is unlimited and ever present. Did I ever experience the non-existence of myself, or the birth or the dying of myself? Who was there to experience such appearance and disappearance? So it is ever present, meaning eternal. It is eternal, it is infinite, and it is never changing. So the I doesn't change. The content of the experience is always changing. You know, there is maturity in the emotions and the thinking, but that which knows them never truly change. It is the same I when I was 5, when I was 15, when I am 55. Same I, same sense of I. So it is unchanging essence. So I start exploring in the quality of awareness, and I know myself to be this awareness, and I tune myself back to its quality, and I live in that knowing. So this kind of investigation, in my experience, doesn't take 10 years of meditations. Doesn't take like years of practices and chanting. Those are beautiful things. I love meditation and mantra. But what I'm saying, it's really much more simple than this for the one to know themselves. And it's not a state of like for only the special ones, you know. It is truly merely the self recognizing itself. It is accessible and available for each one of us. So somehow we pushed this recognition into something to be unattainable or not grounded, but it's truly not. There is nothing more available to the self to know itself. This is the most available, simple, ordinary thing, you know. But once you do, then there is an extraordinary feeling, because it's not what we have used to. You know, because we have been contracting and defending a person, a seeming person. And suddenly there's nothing to defend anymore. You know, because you are the one infinite eternal being. You are safe just by being yourself. You are love just by being yourself. You are joy just by being yourself. So there is no seeking and no resisting and no defending and no contracting anymore. So there's this release, and this is what the Eastern has called it, the bliss, you know, and the ecstasy of enlightenment. But eventually this also will be grounded, you know, and it will be ordinary life. You come back to life. But the only thing that is different now, that you are not continuously defending yourself, that you are not constantly limiting yourself and seeking and resisting. You are present here now, accepting what is, because you don't see the separation between you and what is. There is no more separation between you and the awareness and the presentation of awareness. The presentation of awareness, which we call word, is also made of infinite awareness. Also awareness stuff. It's like the dream and the mind. You know, the dream is made of mind stuff that dreams it. The mind that dreams it. The world is made of the infinite awareness that dreams it. The world is very real. The experience is very real, very real. The illusion is that it is something out there happening to me, separate from me. So I push myself out in my thought out of this present moment. And I keep resisting what is. And I keep seeking what I don't have. While all what I'm seeking is to know myself. Because this is the joy, this is the happiness, this is the love that I am looking for and a seeming outside reality.
Yeah, I think that the only place that realization can occur is in a state of inaction. Like when you're not trying to force things to be a certain way, or you're not trying to manipulate things, which is what most people are caught in. Most people are continuously on the endless hamster wheel of trying to manipulate and acquire and change their life. And it's only when you can really investigate what is and look at it objectively and non-violently. You know, you're not trying to force it or change it or batter it into something else, and just appreciating and witnessing what it is, that you can discover that place that allows you to see into that. And in a way, I think that there's more opportunity for people now because people aren't working. Perhaps for the first time in their lives ever, they're out of the hamster wheel. Because most people, I think, they're in school from a young age, and then they're caught in the job race for the rest of their lives, and they don't ever really have any moment to just stop and be. And I think that it is a good opportunity for people to really look into that and allow that awareness to kind of come back slowly.
This is a great opportunity.
Yeah,
you're saying.
Sure. Oh, well, I just wonder because I feel like there are certain people who have a much more natural proclivity to have these kinds of experiences or realizations. You even hear stories of, you know, sort of saints or enlightened beings that when they were 7 years old had some kind of spontaneous experience and then lived for the rest of their lives in that state. And then there are other people who might rigorously practice some kind of spiritual discipline for like 50 years and never quite get it, you know? So I think there might be something also to our astrology in our dispositions to be able to realize that. And you and I have the same birthday, which is interesting. So we share like different year, but we do share at least some commonalities, I think, from that. And interestingly, Miles, who I'm going to be talking to later, is also born on March 21st.
Wow.
So today I'm interviewing two people that have the same birthday as me. Yeah, and Miles is also, he's a great artist and really interested in these same kind of existential themes. So there is something to that, I think. And I'm curious what you have to say about that.
I mean, me and you also, we have Venus square Neptune, and we're going through now as a transit Venus square Neptune. And this is very interesting aspect that humanity now is also experiencing. And it has to do with relationship mostly, but also it has to do with Venus being in relation to its higher octave, which is Neptune. So Venus is the planet of love, but it is personal love. It is the possession. You know, it is your mind kind of love. While Neptune, it is universal love. So Venus and Neptune are very connected in their archetypes. And the square between them to create some kind of idealism, disappointment, and relationships, and the seeking of this perfection. I call it like it is the prince turned out to be the frog. But we know that. Yeah, but we know that the frog also holds a medicine, you know, so that's good. That's not really bad. But yeah, I mean, this aspect is very beautiful, but also very challenging. and it holds some kind of a perfection within it, like the seed of perfection that is always disappointed in the outer form, you know, in relationship and in our idealism. And the lesson here, or the opportunity here, is to find a perfection of the oneself, this intimacy, that we are in perfect love when the person is not there anymore. So Venus is kind of like upgrading itself through this kind of square that we both have. Moving from this possessive love into a universal love of the knowing of the self.
Yeah, that's also part of the realization of hopelessness, is that there's no
I love
perfect
what you're
people.
saying. Yeah, I love what you're saying about hopelessness. I remember Richard Rudd, the founder of the Gene Keys, maybe like 5 years ago, he talked about a very mysterious Gene Key, the 65. We all know that who knows the Gene Keys and I Ching and human design, there are 64 archetypes. And he spoke once, only once, about this very mysterious 65th Gene Key or I Ching, and he said the shadow will be hope. So the shadow is hope. And it's beautiful what you're saying, that it is hopelessness that we need. It is hopelessness that it's not there. It's not where I'm looking. So I need to turn towards the one that is looking and investigate in what's looking and what's longing.
Yeah, because hope comes from a place of poverty, because it comes from a dissatisfaction with what is now, and a hoping that things will change, rather than realizing that it's not going to change. This is where we are.
This is
where
as good as it can get.
This is as good as it gets. Yeah. And there's something really liberating about that.
Absolutely.
And then it changes your orientation so that you're not trying to get something, but instead you're just trying to cultivate your relationship with life in such a way that you are deriving maximum fullness and openness and enjoyment to life and what is, which is a totally different kind of pursuit than the pursuit of external things.
Yeah, absolutely. I find like people find it hard to accept what is when we don't like what is, you know, but we don't like what is because we don't understand what is. We have our own filter about what is, our own conditioning, our own view. The mind is always filtering reality. And we cannot ever know what anything is without knowing what we are. So we really need to start here. I really invite who's listening today to investigate in the self, to turn toward the self instead of investigating in an outer truth or seeking an outer thing. You will keep doing that. I'm not saying like stop your life. You know, this will keep on going. But take a moment where you investigate in the self, because only when you know yourself, you will know what reality is. And when you know what reality is, there is no way that you will resist it. Because it's such perfection, it's such love, it's such compassionate word. But we don't see it this way right now because we are filtering reality by our misunderstanding of the self. What we understand ourselves to be is projected onto a reality. So there is a veil of Neptune when we don't know confusion, existential confusion about the self and therefore reality. And we will never understand what anything is until we know who we truly are.
Yeah, somebody commented before something like, what if you have too much acceptance for yourself and that hinders your motivation? And it's funny because that sort of line of thinking is something I've contemplated a bit, but from what I know about certain people that were regarded as having reached really high states of consciousness, if you want to call it enlightenment, for the most part they did nothing. Like Neem Karoli Baba, that was respected as being an enlightened being who was Ram Dass's guru, just sat around all day. That's all he did.
I mean, what was his internal experience? This is what's important. His internal experience. It can look for the person from outside that this is not exciting. Maybe his internal experience is absolute bliss and he doesn't need to do anything.
Exactly.
I mean, we have many manifestations of such self-realization. Some get to that point, as you said before, like spontaneously at the age of 7. And from that moment on, they were enlightened and they acted and they were in the world in a certain way. And other people, they have this enlightenment or recognition of the self in waves. So it comes like I think most of us, have this recognition, and then it comes and goes, until one day it stabilizes and we abide in that self. How this will be manifested and how this will take form, it's really according to the design through which awareness is expressing, or the template through which awareness is expressing itself. So to answer the question of the one who commented, if there is no motivation, as if there is some kind of inertia and passivity and bad feelings around it, that doesn't mean real self-realization. Real self-realization, it does motivate you to share your love, to share your happiness, whether sitting in lotus pose and radiating this love without saying a word, or like touring the world and teaching, or painting a piece of art, or playing music, or anything. This expression comes back to the template, to the unique design. So knowing the self does not negate the template, the design, the uniqueness, the individual. It makes it more free to express itself without the resistance, without the seeking, without the disappointment again and again and again, and the limitations. So when you know yourself, you sit in yourself, and you are so happy and so at peace. I'm not talking about like happiness, like ecstatic joy. I'm talking about like a grounded peace, that you are at ease. You are at ease. So you express yourself at ease, as you should, as it is available for you at any given moment from this impulse of love. So it can be very active expression, and it can be very passive expression. But even the passive expression in that space is not a lack of motivation. It's not a lack of passion. It's just being absorbed by yourself and expressing yourself in silence. That's also perfect.
Yeah. So we have about 30 seconds left of getting this little countdown. Do you want to go back on and answer some questions for a few minutes? We can go live again and answer some questions if you want.
Right now?
Yeah, like
or
it's
later?
Going to end. No,
Okay.
Right now. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to end this and go on.
All
again.
Right.
This has been so wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yep. So we did it, guys. That was another episode of the Quarantine Sessions podcast. I am the host. My name is Jake Cobrin. I want to thank you again for tuning in and listening to this episode, and I hope that this was a valuable experience for you. If you're interested, you can watch these podcasts live on Instagram. I am doing between 3 and 4 live podcasts per week. And if you want to find that, my Instagram account is _.cobrin._ just for aesthetic embellishment. And please subscribe to this podcast so that you can be notified of further episodes. And that's about it. Many blessings to you wherever you might be. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Be well.